Hello again. You guessed it, we are still here on Gelvin Valley, and probably everybody's getting tired of this field. I did a little bit of it, not recorded, but not much. And like I've said, I'm not easily bored, so I kind of like this. But what I see here that I have a problem growing, I'm running out of fuel in my tractor here, and let me see what my combine is. Yeah, the combine's doing all right, but I definitely need some fuel for the tractor. Courseplay in most recent version, I believe if you come up with a fuel tank, it will automatically load the fuel in. I don't know that the older version of it did. Maybe I could even check the menu in here. Sometimes they will indicate on the settings. You always put it on full drive. I don't remember where that particular setting was. So it must be something that they didn't put in until the later version. So I gotta go get some fuel. So I'll take my one remaining vehicle and take it up and get her into service. This is down on the main farm. Well, kind of the main farm. You know, there are several farms on this map. This is the beef farm, and I haven't done anything with beef yet, but you'll kind of see on the map it's more of a central location, so I don't even know if this is an accurate statement. I kind of figured that it'd be less driving if I had kind of a central location for where I put stuff, but these roads are so windy and twisty it probably doesn't make a hill of beans difference anyhow. So but I do have some fuel in here, and I'm gonna head up to the field, take a little drive through the country, and take him some sauce. I should also repair them while I'm up there, but I think I'll wait a little bit for that. I mentioned in another video, so much of the damage has happened not because I've done it, but because some computer algorithm running Courseplay has done it, so it seems like the repair cost would be a little steep for actual damage that I myself did. I think, yeah, I think I want to go up this road here. Like I say, it's just a very picturesque map. In vehicle, you can get even more of a picture. It just feels like you are literally there. It's not a bad sky texture that's being used at the moment. I'm an atrocious driver, trying to stay on the left side of the road. Yeah, this was a field just off to the left that I used to have, and it appears the computer has plowed it and planted a crop in it. So if I ever get it again, that part will be done or just need to be touched up. I think that must be an entrance to a grass area or to the forest to cut some trees. It's kind of interesting. There's a little open area there. There's all kinds of areas of interest on this map. This is a field we'll be harvesting over here to the right. I think that one comes after the field we're in currently, field number 42. We'll head to 32. Try to have some, can't even stay on the road, some semblance of order as I go through the fields. You know, this is in the version of the game before seasons, so I don't think there was a mod out there that's kind of simulated seasons. You know, would at least print. I'll maybe see if I can try to find that. print on the screen somewhere, say, hey, you're in spring right now, you're in summer. But I don't know that it literally did anything with the growth cycles. It was more just use your imagination. But I am trying to have seasons. I know before we had the seasons mod, the way I would play is right on the heels of the combine or harvest. I'd be in there. Uh, Let me just fuel everybody up while I'm up here. Right on the heels of harvest, I would be immediately ripping the field out and planting a new crop. There we go. We'll fill up that one. But now, I mean, you can kind of see what I'm doing as I combine these. I'm windrowing it, getting it ready for baling. I'm going to finish the combining before I touch the baling. So we got a ways to go. Where's my combine? There it is. Actually, there's no sense stopping it really. Horseplay has it at a distance, so it'll probably stop just on its own when it gets full here, so I can fuel it up at that point. It's actually getting close. We're getting a narrower strip here, getting done with the field. Guess I could hop in here and look and see the map. Yep, this area we won't harvest, but there's, yep, a narrower strip down in here now that we've got the outer edges done. Yeah, I know this field has probably seemed like tedium to everybody watching. Maybe what I need to do is talk to my friend. I know he's done, and I've seen other YouTubers do it. The fast, well, not fast forward. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Where they record what they're doing from like drone footage, if you will, and then they speed it up. So you still can see everything they're doing. It just happens real quick. Trouble is, a lot of those they set them to music and make it all look all artsy and everything, and I just don't know how to do all that. So, but that's all right. For some reason, I thought he'd stop on that corner, and he isn't. So maybe I'll let him get going again here, and we'll give him some juice, and hopefully have him all ready when. All right, we're gonna give him some juice. Perfect. That's a dirty combine, but it's doing its job. This brings some memories back years ago working in the fields. I mean, it was standard operating procedure in the mornings. We'd be servicing the combines during harvest, if you will, greasing all the joints and whatnot that required lubrication, checking the oil, blowing out the radiators, and always, of course, fueling up the machines. And typically the combines would go the entire day on a single tank of fuel. I think that's how they were kind of designed. But in here, I think I studied the code on it one time, and it seems to me that the fuel tank would go 5 hours, maybe? Is this tractor stuck? I better find out. Well, if that doesn't just beat all. Is there something it's... I don't know what this combine is seeing, but let's help him out. Oh, what the soup? Well, alright. I think I'm going to manually drive this back. And it, yeah, I may not want to drive at the speed I get to. Not sure why it's, well, I mean, it's horseplay. I should be expecting it. Oh, no, he wants to, yeah, he's having some issues. I may even need to restart the game or something if it's truly having a hard time of it. Yeah, down to a whopping 24 miles an hour. Definitely needs some repairs. Come on, dry the hill. Maybe it's for lack of fuel. Anyways, as I was saying, at one point I had studied the Lua code, although I think this was in a later version of the game, and it appeared that in 5 hours of runtime it would drain a fuel tank. Of course, maybe that's how it is on some manufacturer's design, that it only goes half a day, fuel up in the middle of the day, maybe to make it more efficient or something. Don't know, but I know the machinery we use, it seemed like if you had a full tank of fuel at the beginning of the day, it pretty well carried you through the whole day. And when you're the low man on the totem pole, which I was, one of your jobs is to fuel up the machines. And make sure you do it well. I remember a few instances of, you know, not paying attention. I mean, we did it old school. We had this, it'd come out of the trailer. There we go. Let's give it some sauce. It would come out of the trailer, and we had, you know, just like going to a gas station, a filling station, you'd have that type of hose and handle, and we would put the cap, the fuel cap from the combine or whatever, under the handle so that it would stay on, and then we would go do other things, you know, like we were greasing the combine or what have you. Um, but invariably, sometimes you would forget, and all of a sudden you'd over. Now, what are you heading back there for? And fuel come burping up on the ground. I had some good chew outs. Whenever I let that happen, it's kind of a waste of fuel. But that's how we learn, right? Or so I can tell myself. I wasn't the one paying the bill on this spilled fuel. Okay. I fueled everything up, but maybe I'll leave it in this field because I got to do some repairs at some point. So, sure, why not? Maybe I'll back up a little bit further. I can stay out of the way of horseplay trying to take tractor to market. Even though that's a map edge over there, doesn't that just look like there's a huge valley right over the edge of that field? Last video I was kind of sharing a little bit about myself personally. I kind of cut it off somewhere in there just to keep the video length down. I don't know what level of interest there is in it. Like I was talking about cooking at the time or whatever. I guess we all have our different areas of interest. Maybe I would share. I went to university here. I went to Oregon State University where I got my degree in accounting. I was there for 4 years. I got a degree in agriculture too, agriculture economics, agriculture resource economics, I think is what it was technically called. Because when I was a little boy, I I wanted to farm. I've wanted to farm my whole life, basically. So that kind of was my nod to agriculture, going to school and getting a dual degree. And I think I could say I've used it, even though I focus more on the business side with accounting. A huge portion of our client base of work is ag related businesses, whether farms or transportation for farmers, trucking companies. There's loggers we serve. There's food processing or oil seed processors of certain type. We've had, there's been all kinds of food processors, hazelnuts, berries, tree, fruits and whatnot, you name it. We've served those. So I guess I could say I've made use of my ag degree too in serving those types of customers. Um, at the time, OSU, I'd say it was a pretty good school. It maybe still is. I just know the whole education system. I don't want to get political in here, but there's been a lot of changes to the institutions that I came through school, and I don't think a lot of it is in a positive direction. But that's just my opinion. It was a good school, and I went there, and I appreciate the education I received. Not sure my kids will do the same thing though for their career in school. One of my sons is considering accounting. Um, Actually, I can talk more about him kind of in a later video with some of his interests. That's where I went to school. I think I mentioned I met my wife at church. We were part of a local church here in our area. That's a hugely important area of our lives. Uh, Much more important, really, than anything, even a silly video on a game, is our relationship with Jesus Christ. And I want to say that for sure in the video here. I know people have different philosophies and everything in life. That's been ours, and it's served our family very well. And honestly, I don't know how people live or make it through life without a belief in God or in a power higher than themselves. And like it's just really really important. I'm right now I'm a Sunday school teacher for our church, so I really enjoy working with young people when I can, and trying to answer their questions and help build them. I remember all that years ago, whether it was even secular school or whatever it is, just those adults that took time to mentor and to work with kids. And you don't know anything when you're a kid. Maybe you think you do. And just those that take time to help teach and train you and gently keep you moving the right direction. Just a fabulous thing, and being able to help out and give back to young people. I really enjoy it, and hope it's useful to them too. probably should use a different video to talk about work history and that kind of thing, but I can mention a couple things here if it's of interest. I mean, shoot, I gotta come up with something to say in these. uh, I I've worked my whole life. That was kind of instilled into us when we were kids, and growing up in a large family. My wife grew up in a large family too. I mean, there was 8 children in hers. I mean, you had to work. You had to learn how to do stuff because mom and dad couldn't do everything by themselves, and everybody had to help each other. And in order to make a family like that work, and a lot of it's teamwork and just learning to get along with people. And so there was a lot of work learned at home, and I know some people, families aren't their thing, but I tell you, I wouldn't trade mine for anything. I mean, these are my best friends, and when my parents pass away someday, I'll still have all of them. And it's a tremendous support structure, and there's always people to talk to, people to do stuff with, and really treasure the childhood I had, kind of as a result of that, of just being in with all the rest of them. They're a treasure to me. But learning to work, and it doesn't seem like kids anymore are even allowed to work, the way the laws are set up. And I think parents would gladly have their kids work, but I don't know, maybe it's due to lawsuits, do-gooder philosophies, or whatever. But I remember as a kid, I mean, I had an uncle that had strawberries, and that was a rite of passage. Every summer we were picking berries out there, and back then it was a huge deal. I mean, to crack $100 of, picking berries all summer long. I think I probably threw more of them and ate more of them than I ever did pick them. It was like 10 cents a pound. And if you picked it for fresh market, it was 12, but you had to leave the stems on. I mean, I still remember the prices of all things. And just days of sitting there in the sun and picking strawberries and just learning how to work. It's like if you put your head down and tend to business, you can make a little money. And in our particular area of the country, it was an area too to learn about different ethnicities. And I can't remember how I internalized all that as a kid. I mean, there's a lot of immigrants that would come through. Some of the Mexicans, Hispanic folks, and a lot of them, they didn't have very much, so or any other skills, at least the ones that I knew at the time. So they would end up out in the field picking berries right alongside me. And I can tell you there's a huge difference between, someone who's a kid and learning to work and, maybe trying to earn a little spending money versus someone doing it because their very life depends on it. And so those guys could typically pick circles around us. They were awesome workers, and they did it because they had to. But I appreciated those experiences nonetheless. I mean, there was even times when the strawberries would be ready, even while we were still in school, and I have some memories of working in the field to do that even before school, just to pick a couple crates or what have you before heading in to get the reading, writing, and arithmetic, as they say. And so I worked for my uncle a number of years in the berry patch. He eventually changed his farm to different. Now it's kind of a turf and a nursery farm or whatever. And actually, my wife works for him, incidentally. It's kind of ironic. I hadn't even thought about that connection until now, that I used to be there years ago, as just working as a kid. Eventually it was other things too. There'd be irrigation pipe to move, and a lot of the crops he had were thirsty. They needed water all summer long to keep them alive, or at least until they were harvested. So we got in on that, and eventually later he set up his sod farm and nursery stocks. There was different work related to that, whether it was mowing and still a lot of irrigation. But looking back, I guess what I appreciate is it wasn't just him. I mean, that was one uncle. There was several uncles that we had that had enterprises like this. Is the fact that they allowed their nephews, their kids, to come and work and learn how to work. And now that I've been in the workforce for as many years as I have, and I'm self-employed, I know how painful it is when you hire somebody new that doesn't know how to do the job. It's very costly to help train them and get them up to speed. They make a lot of mistakes. And the idea of taking a young kid and actually paying them to do stuff when you could have much better options available, but they did it because they wanted to give some kids an opportunity at it. I guess I look back with fondness, although at the time I remember, you get tired and the day was long, and that at some point you'd complain about the job and you want it just to be done. And I don't know, I look back with a lot of fondness on that time. And that probably took me until, I was into middle school, maybe. And at some point in there, my grandmother died, on my dad's side. And so part of the summer, it happened right in the middle of grass seed harvest. And for some reason, I had some time available. Lots of the family flocked up to my dad's, or my grandfather's farm, and were helping bring in the harvest just to take care of it because there was a death in the family and whatnot. And so I went up there to help too. And that was some of my first exposure to working on lone oak farms up there. And it's kind of a curious thing, that was an interesting time now that I think about it. Farmers are an interesting lot. Most of them are pretty independent. They make their own decisions. They got their own farms, their own businesses, their own economics. But one thing I've noticed about country living and country people and farmers is when there's a tragedy, a loss, something that goes wrong, even though they're independent and maybe even competitors at some level, for property and places to farm and all that. Even though you have all that going on, they still will come together and help one another in ways that you just don't see with other businesses. So when my grandma died, I mean, my grandpa obviously was devastated and not really in the mood to bring in this crop, as he's dealing with the emotions of losing his wife. And if anybody thinks my family's huge, my father's family was more than double. I mean, there was 14 children in his family. My dad was the oldest, and there was actually 15. One of them died, I believe, shortly after birth. Um, but anyway, he not being in the mood, I mean, a lot of neighbors just came together, and so you'd go up there. I still remember vividly that couple weeks when they were bringing in my grandfather's harvest. Just you see a field, with 7 to 10 combines in it. My grandpa at the time, I think he had 2 machines, maybe 3, I don't recall. So he had his going, and then the neighbors, they just came and just helped out to get grandpa's crop in. And yeah, so I mean, those are just the things people do. And I don't know if that's universal. It'd be interesting to talk to someone from the UK. I would assume it's similar there. I don't know if it's a country folk thing, or friendships, or if it even be the same today. It's just like other places in the world. It's similar here in the States, where farms just keep getting bigger and bigger, it seems like, and the small family farms, it's just tougher to make it go. And so a lot of farms are consolidating. The next generation is not choosing to farm, so mom and dad sell the land and they just get out of the business and the kids take the money. In many ways it's kind of sad, a lot of that. But so maybe it'd even be a different dynamic. Once you have just corporate farms around, would they help each other that way? I don't know. Or would they try to take advantage of the other guy and kick them when they're down? Don't know. But it was kind of neat at times seeing families come together and help out. So that was my first exposure to Lone Oak, and I probably should pull up the Lone Oak map before talking about all that. I spent, oh, let's see, that'd be all my high school years and most of my college years in the summer were on Lone Oak Farms. At least 7 years, possibly 8. Oops, I think this guy's in the way. So as soon as we got out of high school in June, we basically would head up to the farm. At that point in time in June, there was a little bit of cattle, so there'd be a hay crop to bring in. And there'd be machines to get ready for the summer. And when I say machines, I'm talking about a couple combines, trucks to haul the seed, and a few windrowers. These were self-propelled windrowers, and most of their equipment was all John Deere, by the way. The grass seed, kind of a different process. Like this, as we look in game here, we see this combine cutting the wheat standing, meaning the wheat has dried on the stalk in the field, and the combine comes in, cuts and threshes all in one operation. Well, with grass seed, traditionally it's done a little differently. The the seed is, or the grass is first windrowed, cut and laid in windrows so it can dry for a week and a half, 2 weeks before it is combined. It very rarely is cuts to ending, and usually if it's cuts to ending, it's because you made a mistake and didn't catch it in time to lay it onto the ground. And I think part of the reason that it's done that way is, grass being what it is, nature has a way of getting seed out, and it's by the wind and just the nature of grass waving in the wind. If the seed matures in the stalk, well, it can easily fall out onto the ground. And you go out into these fields, you pick up a bit of the swath, and if you bat it against your hand, you'll see seeds come right on out of it. It just shatters out really easily. So the practice has been to windrow it. Usually I'd say the start of July, at least in the area where Lone Oak Farms is. That's kind of what we would do. And then a couple weeks later, you'd be into combining. And it all depends on the year. Occasionally, once in a blue moon, you'd be threshing in June. That was very rare. And then occasionally also you could be threshing almost into September. It all depended on the weather for a particular year. But the windrowing, I just loved it. It was, because I'm kind of a night owl as it is. But this all took place at night. And so I have lots of memories of we get those machines ready, get them all serviced, and the sickles taken care of, and spending nights just out in the dark. Well, the lights, obviously, but windrowing the ground and laying it all out so combines could swing in a week or two. And so, like this combine here has the cutter head on it. The combines that were on Lone Oak had a pickup belt out front to pick up the windrows that were laid down. So in the spring, that's kind of what we did on the farm. Get all that stuff ready. There was a couple years in there, and I really treasure these too. It actually was kind of hard times on the farm for a couple years in there. So to get some extra revenue, they did some logging of a canyon they have, where they have a lot of pasture for their cattle. So for a couple weeks before harvesting started, we spent a lot of time down in the canyon cutting timber that they had down there, and it was old school style. I mean, it was with chainsaws, and my grandpa had an old D4 dozer, and he would be on the back of that thing, and I would go out and set choker cables just like they do, the professionals do, and hook it up to the bowline on the cat, and he would haul them to the landing, after we had felled the trees and cut the limbs off and what have you. And we didn't haul the logs ourselves. There was another professional that came in and hauled those out of the canyon. But I don't know, it was an interesting time. It's not every day that everybody that gets to learn how to use a chainsaw. That's and I wouldn't say I'm super skilled at it, but I know enough to be adequate, and I know enough, which is a good part, on how to be safe. It's YouTube is full of videos of people doing silly things with chainsaws, and so I feel gratitude for being able to learn how to use it at that time, and fortunately nobody got hurt, even though there would be a few mistakes. And I can't even remember when I started this video, but maybe I've hit another half hour or more, so I think I'm gonna cut it off here, and we'll come back at another time. If you've suffered through this, thank you much for watching. You take care.